Okay, let's get started. For visitors and guests, my name is Jim Farmer and I am the president-elect of the Dublin Worthington Rotary Club. I'd like to welcome you to our 41st meeting of the 49th year of the club. Our invocation and pledge will be by Jerry Katz.
Just a minute.
When he's ready.
Okay, you've heard this one before. Oh, so I don't.
Well, we won't remember. It doesn't make any difference.
I won't need the mic because you'll be able to repeat it. So. If you would, in an attitude of prayer. To a supreme being we pray. It's so simple to help others. To make their life better. Help us to not make it so difficult. But to do it because we can. To this, we all say, amen.
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one.
Thank you.
Thanks, God.
Our past president, Steve Paley, to introduce our visitors and guests today.
We have a guest. Yes. Mr. Matt Logan.
Right over here. I'd like to introduce Matt Lofi, who is the president and CEO of the Worthington Area Chamber of Commerce. He will have been here for 3 years and he's done a great job of rebuilding and rejuvenating our Chamber of Commerce. And he's been recognized as the outstanding director, executive president by the state organization. So,
Right. Do you have a guest?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Louise and introduce Louise to you, my bride of coming up on 58 years next on the 28th. Custom Zinc, whom you'll hear more about later.
Excellent. So for 58 years, it's $5.80 in the pot.
it's not until June, right? June
Yeah.
or June?
May 28th.
Oh, May 28th.
Start saving your dimes now. Okay.
Alan, is that your first wife?
Okay, so let's move on to our sergeant, who is Phil Giesler today. Phil?
Okay.
I think that it's appropriate, yeah, I'm gonna get you, Alan. Charlie, you wanna carry the pot, please?
Or I can suffer Charlie.
No, I was hoping.
Okay.
He needs the steps.
Yeah,
He needs the
okay.
steps. He needs the steps. A couple things. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm taking Connie Hendren's place today and quote unquote, just so you all know that you're loved and cherished by her. I asked her if there's anything in particular she'd like me to do, and she'd say, tear into them all. That's love and kisses from Connie Hendren in Tennessee. That means tearing into everybody means I get to, find them. Okay. So first of all, we'd like to offer anybody who'd like to express themselves with happy dollars. And if not, you will be made happy. Yes, sir.
I am happy for 2 reasons. One is that the raffle is done. I will share more information about that when we get to announcements. The second is, I have been building a cabin in the woods for like 2 years and it's finally getting delivered next Tuesday. So I'm very excited to finally get to see what I've been paying for.
And you look at volunteer here.
Is that our next project?
Yeah, I've got a deck that needs assembled.
Oh, that's great. That's a good thing to do. Anybody else happy dollars?
I've got $50.
Yes, please.
So might sound a little strange, but I got married on Tuesday. I actually had a ceremony last May, but my husband, well, my now legal husband and I didn't sign the paperwork for whatever reason. We just weren't thinking about it. And so now that insurance is coming due and so I got married on Thursday, so I'm super happy.
I don't think I've ever heard that before. So you had your ceremony sometime in the past, but you decided to sign the
May
papers.
20th of last year, yeah.
And you can go to your honeymoon at the cabin in the woods.
Yeah, that's exactly.
There you
right.
go. Phil?
Fundraiser for the organization.
That's great. Anybody on,
Yes, Phil?
Don?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm-
Well, I have two happy dollars. One is that, I'm actually three, which I won't be able to, contribute cash for until the next meeting I'm in attendance. The first is that, we had a good, buddy box event last Thursday, and I appreciate the 11 Rotarians that showed up for that. We did double buddy boxes, so we actually had, the equivalent of over 600 meals, but even though we only loaded 300 boxes. And so thanks for the folks that showed up for that. Second one is that I just had, so far successful hernia surgery and am recovering, which is why I'm remote today. And the third is that, a couple days before the surgery, I went and bought a new car, which I can't drive for several days now because I had hernia surgery, but at least I have three happy dollars. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Don. Anybody else?
Yes, I'm just anticipating what's gonna happen later. I will be very happy when I win the travel raffle.
It's only worth $1?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure it's gonna happen, but.
Was that a bribe?
We're not even gonna get into that. But at the table, as long as we're at this table, Charlie, going back over there. Because today happens to be, according to the Google people of the world, the International Day of Families. And what a better time to bring your wife and your nephew to Rotary than today is International Day of Families. So, please, Al.
How many is that cost?
What do you think? Maximum, I'm sure, whatever that might be.
Well, we'll give it a couple.
Okay,
Okay.
fine. Thank you very much. And, it seems only appropriate to ask simple questions first. How many took the time, the energy to see the Northern Lights?
Well, I went, I didn't see him. Expended the energy.
Oh, wait, how many did we had three people that did? The very Northern Lights that were here and then right here and the rest of you commit.
Does it count if you saw him on Facebook?
I don't know, but I forgot all about it, so I'm gonna have to do this too. And we don't have to do this, but we're gonna have to do that.
I saw them when I was a kid. I mean.
No, I mean, the last 7 days, so,
Well, then I have another happy dollar.
okay.
So my wife was really into this thing, so we went to our local school and it was too bright. So then I said, why don't we go down to about three blocks away to the park on the bike trail? It'll be completely dark down there. So we're down there, I've got my headlight on and we're walking in the dark. And all of a sudden we see these bright lights coming from the south toward the river. And I said to Mary, I think we need to be leaving here because I'm not certain what that was, but I was certain. I thought it was a police car coming for us. And it was. So I'm very happy they didn't arrest us.
For parking down by the river?
For causing a public commotion. Actually, what they were doing is that they were looking for some kids that were out having fun. And they were
And
going
they
on
found
the bike trail. I said, look at us, we're old. So they just gave us, check the license plate to confirm that I did live up the street and that was it.
That's it. Very good, very good. Okay, a couple other things here. Today, this month, is very interesting. there are 4 Rotarians. And I'm seeing, let me see if all of them are here. Yes, all of them are either here or on, or looking at us as Zoom. There are 4 Rotarians that had the anniversary of their joining Rotary in May. And so those Rotarians go from 37 years. Molten,
I know.
stand up. 37 years.
I'm not that old.
Yeah, well, you wish. Dave Kittredge, according to my math, you're at 33 years. Jim Miller at 15. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Stand up, we'll be honored. And Joe Patchen, wherever you are, this should be your 16th year? No, whatever, you don't know. No. Okay, so we acknowledge your time here, and that adds up to a lot of years. I can't remember how many, but I think it gets into the almost 80s. So for the 4 of you, 80 years of
Service.
service.
Service, good.
And service for self. So thank you very much. And for all of you, this is a 4-way test. You cannot remember when the year that they, or the month even, that they joined a Rotary Club, throw in a buck. That's a 4-way test. Okay, quickly. We're doing one, maybe let's just try to do one member profile because that particular person is here. This particular person might even remember some of this information. They joined 23 years ago, Rotary. They have been involved heavily. They're passionate, probably about one of the big things is their commitment to community service, other than Rotary. And probably one of their really very favorite work projects would have been to help a thing called the Worthington Schools. So there are several people in this room that go that route. And to this point, the person doesn't even know who I'm talking about yet. Many people do this. The person that they would probably like to have lunch with one more time in conversation with Dad was their dad. Not too much that could be said about that, but a lot of us do feel that way.
It's Jennifer. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Jennifer Best, stand up. You're welcome.
Thanks for putting us out of our misery, Steve.
That's because I was doing this the whole time. He's the only person.
I was actually gonna say row.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, then, Jen, just to be fair, real quick, like boys and girls, this is a boy, or excuse me, a male. Okay.
You're doing another one?
Get it quiet. 44 years. No. Married 44 years. Married 44 years. And 26 years Rotarian. If you're not getting it by now, you're not thinking. Maybe a passionate work for the Boys Village and for Village Network, which really became something significant. If you haven't ever thought about that, go study it. And passionate about the family, love to travel. Ro is a logical person, and it's a male. If you can remember who this is, stand up. Oh, who said that? Kittredge. Everybody else at that table, everybody else put in above. Kittredge, the only person that got it right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Jim Miller, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Phil. I was greatly relieved to hear that Lisa is now legal. And sorry to hear that Steve's had to build a second home because he's getting kicked out of the house so often. So now we have time for announcements, including the big one about who won our raffle.
Come on, Jerry. Need your moral support.
Sorry.
You all know what day it is, right?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah, International Blah Blah Day. So we have a raffle, let me just pull up some stats here, so. We ran this raffle for 60 days, starting on March 15th. We had 5,189 people look at our raffle. We had sold 1,059 tickets to 210 different people. And we raised $30,450.
Wow.
Not bad. So can I get a drum roll for the winner? Clapping, that's not a drum roll. All right, the winner, ticket number 459. Tara Cravey.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's a past governor.
Oh, really? I know.
Rotary.
Yeah.
Yes. Nice.
So now Jerry's gonna thank everybody.
So
Yeah.
close. I gave her the ticket at the conference. I just want you to know that.
Nice.
You want to try to get
You get an atta girl, and the next time I'm a sergeant, you don't have to pay.
I wore my MAC shirt today in honor
Well,
of.
yeah.
This was at least successful. The club will make some money. Of course, we have the grand prize to fund at 20,000. We had some expenses for ads, and we learned a lot about the ads again. We're constantly learning. But, I don't know, the ads might run up to
4,000, 4,500?
yeah, 4,500. So we're in at less than 25,000 on a gross of over 30,000. So it's a success. Now, why was it a success? Well, it's a success because not only did you all participate, but you also notified others, and that was evident. And right here, our winner is a winner because somebody here told them about it and forced them. I know, because Roe probably just said, next time I plan a trip for you, you're gonna be lucky to have a hotel. So, but in seriousness, that's how these things work. And so get used to it, because this actually is probably the easiest fundraiser we can have that will raise a fair amount of money. Now, Ways and Means has to pass on this, and so don't listen to anything I say, just keep doing what you've been doing. Just ignore me, but as we go through Ways and Means and the board, we'll probably stick with this. We just need to hone it a little bit. We just need to keep learning, and we'll move on with it. So I'm not the speaker today, that's the end.
Oh, really?
I'm not the speaker either, but I do have an announcement. We have our 34th annual golf outing coming up, May 24th. Right now, we only have 2 teams signed up, so if I don't get another team or 2 by Friday, I'll probably just reschedule. A lot of people are out of town that day, so If you wanna sign up, let me know, you can call me, text me, email me. And again, if I don't get another team signed up by Friday, I'll just reschedule it for probably, late July or August. Thank you.
Good announcement, Court?
I do.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Monday, this coming Monday, at 6 o'clock in the evening. The Community Service Committee is meeting. And as you know, that's the committee that put together the Arbor Day program. They're the ones that organize the food drives that we have. They're the ones that organize the Buddy Box and things of that nature. So we're meeting, let's see, Don, while he's recuperating,
Yes.
is gonna be on Zoom with us. So Monday night, 6 o'clock, my house. We look forward to seeing you there. And one other part of the announcement is if the committee members really behave themselves, we've been known to have adult beverages to help the conversations go. So we're looking forward to seeing anybody who is interested in the community service, to be in my house Monday, 6 p.m.
Me again, I'm just gonna remind you all of something that I'm sure you all read in the newsletter, which is that our Impact Club is having a social on May 30th at 5:30 p.m. At Zaptic Brewery. So it's gonna be a social and a service project all in one. There are details in the newsletter about what the project is, but essentially they're gonna be creating blankets for the Columbus chapter of Project Linus. And so whatever blankets they made in their free time, and then what they make that night, they're gonna take and donate to that cause. So if you'd like to join them, like I said, May 30th, 5:30 p.m. at Zaptic Brewery. Thank you.
Thank you, Stevie. I encourage everybody to get to know our Impact Club members. They're a very active group, and it's been a very successful project that Steve got started for us. So now our speaker will be introduced by none other than Alan Zink.
Well, if you want to feel old, I'm gonna go walk behind the screen here for a minute. If you want to feel old, but happy, you announce your 58th wedding anniversary coming up. But another feeling of being old is thinking back about 30 years ago at a family gathering in Canton, Ohio, when a kid was running around there about 5 years old. He is my second cousin. His grandfather and I were in business together.
Hold the mic up.
Okay, thank you. Justin Zink is the Senior Vice President of External Relations and Strategic Alliances at the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. He joined the Ohio Chamber in 2019 after working in Washington for 11 years. That's Washington DC. And in various policy and political roles at trade associations on Capitol Hill, as well as federal and state political campaigns. He's a graduate of Ohio University in 2010. In addition to his work at the Ohio Chamber, Justin also serves on the board of directors of the Association of State Chamber Professionals and the Ohio Chamber Health Insurance Agency. Justin and his wife Caitlin moved into Worthington Hills as Louise and I moved out, and they reside there with their son, 2-year-old Gunner, and their dog Percy, and they're expecting a baby girl in July. There you go, Justin.
Thank you for the introduction, Alan, and thank you to the group for having me. All you guys do in the community is vitally important, and my wife and I are new to Worthington, but love it, and look forward to raising our family here in the community. So, is there a clicker by chance? Yes. Okay. Here you go. Thank you very much. So a quick background on what the Ohio Chamber does. We are the largest statewide business advocacy group in the state of Ohio. So what we do is we represent businesses at the State House, the governor's office, before the Ohio Supreme Court. And recently we added that we do lobbying in DC because I still say new CEO, but our CEO that started about 3 years ago was in Congress for 12 years. And resigned to take on the CEO role of the Ohio Chamber. So we're very active. Our main goal is to advocate for businesses and make Ohio the best place to work, live, and raise a family. It seems very simple, but Ohio is on a big growth trajectory. And it's not just here in Central Ohio. While Central Ohio is getting all the press, it's happening all around the state. And today I'm going to tell you what we can do better as a state to encourage economic growth, to encourage people to move back, and encourage people to raise families here in Ohio. So I'll give you another quick background on what we call the blueprint for Ohio's economic future. So about 3 years ago, we decided that we wanted to have a 10-year policy agenda. Most associations, most lobbying firms do it in 2-year cycles because that's when the legislature meets, and they always look for ways to get things done in 2-year increments. Our goal is to think big. How do we get things done that will be transformational to the state? Realizing that we couldn't do that in one legislative session, we said, let's take a step back and look at a 10-year policy agenda. Then we decided how we're going to do that. Every year, you guys might see these things in CNBC, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, ranking states on how they do in certain sectors. Business friendliness, taxes, sense of place, so on and so forth. So we asked Accenture, who we partnered with, to take those rankings, dissect them, and tell us why Ohio ranks where they rank. And then we took a step further and said we need policy recommendations to fix those. So hence, that's how we came up with the blueprint for Ohio's economic future, which was published 2 years ago. So we're early on, but we've already had some wins in last year's budget. But again, the vision of this is to make Ohio the best place to do business. Basically, to look at this, we want to expand the economy. We want to create business friendliness. We want to grow businesses, and we want to increase jobs. Now, a lot of this is going to be a lot of words and a lot of graphs. Please don't feel like you need to read it all. I'll try to capture it all and go from there. So what we did is we broke this down into 6 levers, and these levers are education and workforce, taxes and costs, business friendliness, sense of place, think public health, affordable housing, economic opportunity, and recreational amenities, innovation and collaboration. How do we get access to capital? How do we bring venture capital to Ohio? How do we encourage entrepreneurship, research and development, things like that, and then infrastructure, energy and utilities, internet accessibility, roads and bridges, so on and so forth. So there's the 6 levers, and there's gonna be a common theme throughout this presentation that we think this is the direction Ohio should go and how we become the best place to do business. Education and workforce. So Ohio is still short 50,000 employees. This is a big thing that we hear from no matter where I am throughout the state, no matter who I'm talking to, big business, small business, middle markets. People cannot find employees, and they also can't find employees with the right skill sets. This is a problem because, as we alluded to earlier, Ohio is growing, specifically Central Ohio. Intel CEO was actually just here yesterday, gave a speech and said, this will not happen on time unless Ohio fixes its workforce problem. He called out Ohio, he was plain and simple and said, this will be delayed 2 to 3 years unless we fix this problem. That's something that is not just here in Central Ohio and not just here in the state, it's happening all around the country. Pre-pandemic workforce is completely different than where we are now. A lot of people thought there'd be a boomerang effect. That never happened. There's also been people that were in college that never went back, never got the skills they needed, and it's affecting future economic development projects, like the wins, like, Intel, Honda that we hear about, we're turning projects away, what we call super projects, because of this, and that's a real problem. And education's gonna play an important role in that, but you can't educate yourself out of a workforce problem. You need to reskill current workers for the hard and soft skills that employers need. You need to give them access to those, so Columbus State, for example, just announced that they're gonna have this program for EV vehicles. We're gonna be building EV vehicles with Honda here and up in Lorraine and Ford. That's 14% of our economy is combustible engine auto production. That's great, but as we transition to EVs, and it's not gonna happen overnight, I'm not endorsing EV vehicles, let me be clear, but there's gonna be people that need to know how to work on those vehicles. Ohio's seeing that we're gonna be the hub to build those vehicles, and Columbus State is gonna be the place where they are gonna take people that are working in combustible engine facilities and retrain them to work on EV vehicles. This is the type of leadership and innovation that Ohio needs, so that we're not falling behind on the innovative industries that are coming to Ohio. Ohio's population goes hand in hand with workforce. While we are in one of the 15 fastest growing states, we're still way behind the needs of employers. I mean, it's bad. So one of the things we're working on is how do we bring people back to Ohio that have ties to Ohio? So we're working with the governor's office and the state legislature to basically go old school marketing. So we're gonna have Accenture work with on this whole, there's about, we think 2.83 million people with ties to Ohio that live throughout the country. Whether they grew up here, they're married to someone that's from Ohio, they have family that lives and works here. How do we target them and tell the story of Ohio, and how do we incentivize them to move back to Ohio? I mean, it's, the shortage of nurses, we're already doing that for nurses, we have a shortage of nurses in Ohio. Cleveland Clinic's actually flying people in from Asia to fill those needs. How do we target those people? So we're gonna do a full press market campaign, think social media, ads. I mean, this is gonna be something where you could be sitting in Phoenix, Arizona, enjoying a beer at a bar, and all of a sudden you see this ad that says, move to Ohio, it's a great place, come back home. And those are the types of things that we need to think about, be aggressive as a state to bring people back to Ohio. Now, bringing those 2.83 million people back, it's not gonna happen overnight either. So our approach is, you'll see it's multiple things that we're trying to do to lure talent back, to retrain talent here in Ohio, so that we're ready for the companies that want to move here, want to grow here, and want to be successful here. So upward mobility is also a big problem. Ohio ranks very low in this. It's in our major cities, think the 3 Cs. Another way to upscale our workforce, to bring people into jobs that are, staying open for months, is to allow for people to get educated and have upward mobility into those jobs. That changes their socioeconomic status, and it's a win-win for the family, it's a win for the employer, and a win for the community. That's something that we're looking at, but as you can see, you do not want to see red. Most of Ohio is red. This is a big one you guys have probably heard about in the news a lot lately. It's the cost of childcare. Ohio is way behind this. And it's not just the cost, it's what we call childcare deserts. All this white here is where there is no access to childcare. So it's forcing people to stay home that would otherwise be in the workforce. And again, this is not an Ohio problem, this is a nationwide problem. I currently have one child in daycare with another one on the way they'll be in daycare. I know the cost of it, and it is a burden. And I can understand why a lot of families have to sit down at the kitchen table and say, hey, should I go to work or should I not go to work? And that's a problem because we have people that are educated, whether it be a 4-year college degree or have this 2-year or a skill set, whether it be plumbing, electric, whatever you name it, that are staying home because the cost of childcare outweighs what they would bring home. And we need those people back in the workforce. So we're working to address, the big burden of childcare deserts is the regulatory burdens. You're not allowed to have in-home daycares. There's a lot of regulatory issues that prevent people from having the in-home daycares that are in someone's home. We're trying to lessen those burdens, lessen the licensing, not to say that it's not still be a safe and affordable option, but the way someone needs to go and get licensed for this, it's way too much cost, it's way too much time, and there's too many hoops to jump through. We're trying to streamline that so that these childcare deserts can be filled in. Those people in rural Ohio can either work in rural Ohio or drive the 40 minutes to Columbus, Cleveland, to Cincinnati, and have a good paying job and be back in the workforce. So I won't go through all of these, but some of the things that we talked about, that we're trying to do to fix these things, recruitment campaigns, talking about our culture, talking about the good things, that are happening in Ohio, promote our employers. Those are things that could help bring people back to the workforce, and also re-educating and reskilling people that are already in the workforce for the jobs of the future. Sense of place. Again, the big one that we also hear about here in Central Ohio is the housing shortage. Again, this isn't just Central Ohio, this is happening all around the state. Prices are high, but there's also way too many, there's not enough houses in Ohio, whether that's single family homes, rental properties, multifamily homes. We are at a huge shortage. One of the big reasons is that we are a home rule state. That allows a township, a county, you name it, to make the zoning rules that they want, and you have to play by those rules. So if a town doesn't want to have more people come in, they can say that every lot's gotta be 5 acres and a minimum amount has to be spent to build this home. They're doing that to prevent people from building in those areas. While we're not saying get rid of all zoning, there needs to be some level playing field. There's not many home rule states left in the United States, I'll put it that way. Ohio is one of the few. Ohio ranks 47th out of 50 in health value. One of the big causes that we've talked about for the last 15 years is the opioid crisis, and that is a big driver of healthcare costs here in Ohio still to this day. We were ground zero for that, and we're still seeing the ramifications that came with that. But it's also the things that you think about, drug deaths still 47th. I mean, we're 3 off from the top spot. That's not good. Cardiovascular disease 41st. So access to healthcare, affordability to healthcare. If you don't live in Cleveland, Cincinnati, or Columbus, your access to healthcare is not that great. And people that have cardiovascular disease, going multiple chronic conditions, they're going to urgent care for those things. They're not going to a hospital. And what that does is drives up the cost of healthcare, because all they do is they go in, they charge them, and they say, we need you to go 40 minutes south of Columbus. And then they have to go to the emergency room, which is also a place they should not be going. It's educating people on where they should go when they need the help they need. And the average Ohio does not know that. The data tells us that. Education. Ohioans hold less than a high school degree, make less than $25,000 a year, and or are multiracial, experience increased probability to have multiple chronic conditions. I mean, the numbers, they talk for themselves. Ohio's health is not where it should be. And access and affordability is the main driver of that. Okay, sense of place, again, fixing the housing shortage. We worked on Ohio's affordable housing tax credit program. We were successful in the last budget on that. Increasing our residents' access to healthcare is important. So encouraging the Ohio Health, the Cleveland clinics, the University of Cincinnati Hospital to build out rural areas to allow for access to our rural residents. Taxes and costs, this probably seems like a no-brainer. This tells you how we get our income as a state. So Ohio, really kind of balances out with, a heavy, sales tax, a heavy property tax, and personal income. One of the main things we hear about when we talk to companies that are looking to come to Ohio is this next slide, let me make sure I have it correctly. Municipal income tax. I tell the story, it's actually true. Someone that moved from Arizona to work from Intel got their first tax, they got a letter and they said it came from Rita. And they said, who the hell is Rita? And why is she trying to tax me? And that's a true story. Municipal income tax. I think there's 2 other states in the country that have this, but think about this. There are 88 counties in Ohio. I'll use Walmart as an example. Walmart probably has a store in all 88 counties here in Ohio. That means that they have to file 88 separate tax returns. That is a burden on business. We need to streamline this. I would argue personally that we need to get rid of the municipal income tax. It makes us less competitive, as a state. And just go either, if we can't get rid of it, which is most likely not going to happen, it needs to be a flat tax. That is, every county has to live by. If you go up to, Bedford, outside of Cleveland, they go as high as 3.6%. You got other counties that are this. So not only are you having to file in 88 counties, but you don't even know the rate at which you're paying in each county. As a business owner, whether you're small or large, that's a burden. And it's something that businesses that are looking to invest in Ohio continually complain about to us, and that we need to fix it. That's not gonna happen overnight. Changing, tax reform in Ohio is gonna be an uphill battle. But we have to figure out how to do it. You can see here on the right where we, compare with, some of our neighbors, some like, size states, so Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, outside, Minnesota, we're the highest. Yes.
I have a question around taxes. Has there been any talk about eliminating state income tax? I think about some of my well-to-do friends that have moved out of Ohio to some of these haven states like Texas or Florida because they kind of felt like they had to. I don't know if that's on the table or not.
It's been talked about. There are certain state legislators that have opposed that. The current makeup of the state legislature, it's probably not happening. It's also going to take comprehensive tax reform. You're going to address the municipal income tax. You're going to have to address property taxes. You're going to have to address the sales tax. So to do that, you have to find the funds elsewhere. And where you find those, no one can agree on. Whether it's Democrats, Republicans, it's Republicans even within their own party. State capitals have changed over the last 4 years in the makeup of the Republican Party. You've had a move to populism, which has kind of changed the trajectory of a lot of states. Those types of Republicans are not open to tax reform. They think it's fine the way it is. As someone who works for an association that represents businesses, whether they're based here or based somewhere else, I can tell you it's a real reason people that are either here don't continue to invest in Ohio, or they don't ultimately move here or open up a branch here because of our tax system. It's too convoluted, it's too burdensome, it costs a lot of money internally for a company to do all those different filings. So while it sounds great and it would put us on even playing field with Florida, Texas, Nevada, I'm not saying it's not gonna happen, but the appetite's not there right now. Innovation and collaboration. So Ohio has a lower amounts of small business lending than other comparison states. And again, let me say what I mean by comparison states. That's the Michigan, Georgia, Tennessee, Minnesota, Florida, Texas. States that are similar size economies, similar population. We're kind of in the middle of the pack, but still nowhere close to some of those states you just talked about: Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. Small business lending is vitally important to the future of Ohio. Small businesses make up most of Ohio's economy. That probably comes as no surprise to anyone. They are the lifeblood of the state, and we need to continue to allow them to have access to capital. And whether that's traditional or non-traditional, we need to make sure the state we do better to have, make sure they have the resources to either open a business or grow a business here in Ohio. Venture capital. So if you live in Columbus, you might not think that this is true because we see a lot of venture capital, money come into this area. But as a state, we are way behind, our peer states. And I mean, literally in last place in our peer states. This, to me, is concerning because we're bringing companies like Intel and Honda to Ohio. But they want to be in a place where there's companies that are being innovative, that are bringing new products and new industries to the state. Ranking last in your peer states is not a good sign. We need to make sure that we're a state that is welcoming, that is encouraging, venture capital to come into the state, to spend a lot of money in the state, to give these startup companies that are doing something innovative, the opportunity to thrive or fail. I mean, most venture capital, supported companies don't make it, but the ones that do are wildly successful, and it helps change the narrative of Ohio. Ohio used to be the Rust Belt. I think Intel and Honda has helped change that. They're called the Silicon Heartland now. I don't know if that's sticking, but that's what we're going with. It's not the Rust Belt, but we still have a ways to go in changing the narrative of being a manufacturing state. We will always be a manufacturing state. But again, go back to the EVs, we're gonna be producing more EVs than any other state in the country by 2030. That's a big win. But we also need to have other industries that are coming here that are innovative, that are bringing new products to the market. And the way we do that is by encouraging venture capital to bring those companies here to invest in companies. And that's how Ohio continues to grow, but also continues to be, on the next frontier of what businesses look like 30 years from now. Manufacturing in Ohio. So, we're still a manufacturing state. Almost 17% of our GDP came from manufacturing. And again, back to the workforce, one thing I want to point out is that a lot of these companies are looking for ways to retool their manufacturing plants. And one of the things we did is we made sure that the state gave grants so that they could bring their manufacturing floors into this, century, because it's important. You hear of these guys that have 200 employees that have a machine that has duct tape that's holding it together. We wanted to make sure that wasn't the case anymore, so we advocated for the state to give grants to those companies. So we want to expand venture capital, we want to increase small business support, and we want to transition manufacturers to modern equipment. These are all things that will help Ohio. Again, these aren't, sexy things that will be talked about in the news every day, but it's things that will help move us forward and continue to modernize our workforce. Business friendliness, so think of regulatory, restrictions. We have the highest number of words, and I know that's a very broad state, but in our regulatory landscape. So we have more licenses, requirements than any other state in the country. If you want to go become a barber, the amount of hours that it takes you to become a barber is actually more than if you want to become an electrician. Think about that. Does that make any sense? No. So we're trying to figure out ways, again, it goes back to the housing. Our regulatory landscape needs to change. It needs to be streamlined. Red tape needs to be cut. How do we do that? We change laws, we change rules that are in the Constitution, and those are things we're working on every day. Expand, clean up regulatory practices. That's just a fancy way of saying cut regulatory pressures on businesses. And creating efficiency and transparency of license. It's a money grab by the state at the end of the day. We're not saying get rid of licensing. You need to be trained. You need to make sure that you have the right things and skills to do your job. But let's make it easier on the individual to get licensed. Let's make it easier for the company to get licensed. Infrastructure, no brainer here. Ohio consumes more electricity than it generates. That's a big problem too, and I'll tell you why. Going back to our workforce problem, why companies don't come here, and tax problem. We have been told recently that projects similar in size to Intel have been turned away from Ohio because of the energy grid and reliability concerns. That's a real problem. It's not just a real problem for companies, it's a real problem for you. As you try to heat or cool your home, we're in what's called PJM. We rely on other states for a majority of our energy. We believe at the Ohio Chamber that we should take control of our destiny. What that looks like, can be debated. We think it's an all-above approach. We think it could be coal, nuclear, solar, wind, as long as there's more energy coming to Ohio and being produced here in Ohio, that's a win for the state. And it gives some reliability, for companies that are moving here, knowing that their power's not gonna be cut, and transferred to Indiana because they just had a big storm. That happens on a regular basis. The digital divide, going back to broadband, look at this. I mean, back to the childcare deserts, broadband deserts here in Ohio. This, I always like to use the comparison analogy of, I don't know if anyone was around or when the railroad was being built, but if you look at where the railroads were built in the country, towns and businesses popped up beside it. Where broadband is not, there's no businesses. It's a big problem in the state of Ohio. I mean, some of us live in Worthington. I have very bad Wi-Fi where I live in Worthington Hills. That's a problem. Because think about all the people that work from home. I have neighbors that say they have to sometimes go to a coffee shop because they don't, we don't have, very good broadband in our neighborhood. The red is where people don't have broadband at all. They have zero access to broadband. That's a problem. Some of our recommendations: improve energy transmission and distribution systems, advocate for transportation improvements, and broadband access. I mean, it's important. It's how we're gonna educate our kids. It's how people work. We gotta have broadband throughout the state of Ohio. In conclusion, I mean, it's pretty simple. We want to make Ohio the best place to work, live, and raise a family. We think this is the roadmap or the blueprint for it. It's gonna take more than just the Ohio Chamber. It's gonna take businesses, it's gonna take individuals. It's gonna take electing and auto-electing, state legislators and so on and so forth, because regardless of party, there are people sitting in those seats that do not want to see Ohio grow, do not want to see it thrive. They want the status quo. We are not for that. We want Ohio to continue to move forward. We want Ohio to be the best place to do business and continue to bring on new projects and new opportunities for the future generations of Ohio. So I know it's a lot. I'm probably very boring to most of you, so I apologize, but happy to answer any questions.
There's gotta be some correlation between the worker shortage and the fact that our population's only up 0.23% in 10 years. But is that correlation overstated because a lot of those leaving are retired seniors going to Florida where they have better weather and no state income tax?
That is part of it. The other part of it that I didn't point out, but is super important, is we have a great higher ed community here. We have great colleges, universities. We love to educate our own and then send them out. And I'm not gonna pick on Ohio State, but I'm gonna pick on Ohio State. If you go there, one of their pitches is that when you graduate, we have connections in Chicago, we have connections in New York, we have connections in LA. They're not talking about keeping you here. Their pitch is, we're gonna get you a job in one of those other states. That's a problem. And it's not just Ohio State, it's other universities and colleges here. We need to keep the people here that are being educated here. But again, it's not just that the colleges are pushing that. We need to change the culture of Ohio. We're never gonna have mountains, but if you go down to Hocking Hills, it's beautiful. We're never gonna have oceans, but if you stay on the shores of Lake Erie, you might think you're on an ocean. We need to change the narrative of Ohio and start talking about why it's good to stay here, but also it might take some incentivizing people that are graduating from college to stay here. Other states are giving no state income tax for 5 years to make sure that, those kids stay here. They find that 5 years from the time that people get married, have kids, and then they're more likely to stay where they are. It is people moving out, but it's also keeping our younger generations here, not just educating them and sending them off to other states.
I can tell you that in 1972, 3 lifetimes ago, in 1972, 45% of all OSU graduates stayed in Franklin County. Not, not Ohio, Franklin County. And I know that because I'm a banker and we tried to capture them.
I don't know the exact number, but I would almost guarantee you it's not that high anymore.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's not.
So are you leading the efforts, your organization leading the effort on that? I mean, you talked about you're trying to get people to come back from the outside the area. But who's responsible or who's championing?
Sure.
How the-
Yeah, so what we normally like to do is, some of these things we'll keep in-house at the Ohio Chamber, but something like this, we think it needs to be tackled from the state. They need to, whether it's the Department of Development or another executive agency, these need to be things that are ongoing. Yeah, we could go in the next budget cycle and ask that the Ohio Chamber gets $100 million and we run the program. We don't think that's the right thing to do. We're trying to educate and give the ideas to the government. Now, some of these things, like we're doing something called Work Learn Ohio, which goes back to what we just talked about. We think that if you are able to pay, and so we want to take college students and pair them up with employers while they're junior or senior in college, paid internships. We went to the state and said, hey, we want $40 million of what we're going to start called Work Learn Ohio. We're going to have software and data behind it to match people with the right jobs and the right companies. The thought is that, you get into work with Huntington May and you start building a relationship, you actually have a job, you're being paid, and you do a good job, you like the culture, and you build a relationship with Huntington May, that you stay on afterwards. We're not gonna bat thousand on it, but the hope is that you're not gonna go back home if you live out of state, or you're gonna go take an internship elsewhere, because we're gonna pay you to stay, and then, again, we wanna look at things that other states are doing. Once you graduate, do we give you state income tax deduction or eliminate it for 3 years or 5 years, you choose to stay in Ohio? So that's something that we're trying to take in the house of the Ohio Chamber. Most of this, we're just trying to get the ideas and educate people. And we're not saying we're the right people to run all these things, but we want to make sure that these ideas are getting out there and that there's a voice coming from the business community, which we think has lacked, over the last 34 years.
Yeah, I would support that. That one of the issues that I had to deal with was, for the most part, most business owners thought it was stupid to provide paid internships. They're free, why are you paying for them? I sat on in an organization where we really tried to do that, and it was starting to pay off. But the board pushback was that you shouldn't be paying for these people, they're stupid. And that's one place that I think you can have an impact, is beginning to talk about the wisdom of paid internships, and you get a competitive edge if you pay them well, because you're going to get the cream of the crop in terms of these graduates.
I couldn't agree more, and we've seen it in the Ohio Chamber. I mean, when we started the internship program 3 years ago, we'd have 3 people on staff, full-time employees that started in that first class. You get to know them, you get to see their work ethic. I mean, it's kind of like test driving a car, maybe paying a little bit, but you're not paying a lot. And, it's super important for the employer and the potential employee, because building those relationships, and it's a lot harder now. A lot of people work from home. I mean, I talk to parents that have kids that have graduated college in the last 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years. They're not having the same opportunities to go into an office, build relationships. They didn't have an opportunity to do an internship in person, just given what was going on in the world. Those are people that are being left behind right now, and we're trying to find a way to fix that, but we think Work Learn is one of those things to help fix, it's only a small part of the workforce problem. It's not gonna solve it, but that's something we're working on.
So Justin, is someone tracking that? Is some organizations tracking this, how many kids stay?
So this is just like, so we're actually in the process, so lame duck session will happen right after this upcoming election. And we had to ask in the state of Ohio for between $30 and $50 million to start this program. So it's not enough, this is an idea right now. We're asking the state to help seed it, and then our business plan has it self-sustaining after 2 years. Between a small administrative fee that is paid to have access to this program. And then we're also gonna go around the state and raise money from foundations to help this thing go on. So all we're asking the state for is one-time money. There's plenty of that still laying around from, the COVID dollars. that the state hasn't used, and we're to say, let's put it to good work. One-time money, we're not asking you to give us $30 million every 2 years. Let's put it to work.
Justin, I think many of us could ask you questions probably for the rest of the afternoon, but we're gonna have to call a halt to it at this point. But
Absolutely.
can you hang around for some questions afterwards? I think I see a few people, including myself, who saw I can talk to.
Sure.
some of us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. We now have our mini raffle. To be
Rose already
conducted.
picked a winner today, and so we're gonna have to give her a chance to get the daily double here. It's $30 for the first one. The last four numbers are 6811.
No. Oh, that's me.
That's seven.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that.
I was gonna ask you because you had a daily double in the store getting married 2 times. Yeah. I'm gonna ask you to
Absolutely.
pick out in the cart set, $421.
Oh, big money.
It's got a good one here. The last four numbers are 6796. 6796. Yeah.
All right.
I still got seven.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in a hurry. Well drawn, right?
Okay, good job.
Okay, now I'd like to ask you to join in the four-way test. Please stand for that and recite with me of the things we think, say, and do first.
Is it the truth?
Second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will build goodwill and better friendships.
fourth.
Will be beneficial to all concerned.
We are adjourned.
Thank you very much. Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you will be having a workshop tomorrow at your place?
We can. I realized that you were sitting here that nothing went out about it.
I will get something out this afternoon. Teresa, I thought. To